want to review some hip mobility and flexibility and strengthening exercises because the hips don't lie, and the hips are probably telling you that they are very tight and they need to be moved more because we're probably sitting a little bit more often than we used to due to having to be quarantined and staying at home all the time. Don't get me started on that, that's just a whole nother thing. But I will go over 6 hip mobility exercises, and there might be a little bonus one at the end. So we'll just start with the super basic ones. The first one that we want to do is a hamstring stretch. So yes, I know your hamstrings are back here, but they also are involved with the hip joint. And we'll do a kneeling hamstring stretch. So you'll be kneeling, bring one leg out in front of you, and when you're stretching out your hamstrings, you want to make sure you're not rounding your back. You want to keep it nice and flat, keep your pelvis scooped this way. Bring your toes up towards your face, and then if you need a little bend in your knee, that's totally fine. But what we want to do is just lean forward over the hamstring. And mine are super duper tight, especially this side because I injured it a long time ago. So having a little bit more of a bend in there feels good for me. And then keep my back nice and straight. And then we get a nice little hamstring stretch right here. So we want to hold that for about 1 minute and then switch over to the other side, do that for a minute, and then back onto the other side. The next one will be a quad stretch. So these are our quad muscles, and I'm sure you've seen this one before. So you can kneel, and you're just grabbing your foot, and you can also use a strap of some kind or like a towel if you can't quite reach your foot, because we don't want to have an arch in the back. We want to maintain this nice neutral pelvis while we are reaching for our quad. And again, hold it for a minute at a time, and then switch sides and go back and hold it for another minute. Let's see here. Okay, so then after we've worked our hamstrings and our quads, we are going to work on our inner thighs. It's called our adductors. And if you've ever been to yoga, anything like that, you'll be familiar with this butterfly exercise. So instead of doing a traditional butterfly, we want to open up our feet a little bit more, and you might start to feel a little bit of pinching in the hips. If that's the case, just kick the feet out farther. And ideally, you don't want to lean back while you're doing this. You want to have a nice strong back. So if you find yourself leaning, just do this up against a wall. So what we want to do is let our hips just lay open as much as they can, and then you'll take your hands or your elbows and just flatten them down a little bit farther than you think you can. Do this for about 10 seconds. And then I like to do PNF stretching. So basically what you're going to do is push your hands into your thighs for about 5 seconds and then relax. So this will help to open up that range of motion in your hips. All right, I think we're on to, let's see here. Oh yes, I can't forget about the wonderful hip flexors. So your hip flexors are actually kind of what's keeping your body together in one piece, because it starts on your lower spine and then it crosses over your pelvis into your hip area. So this is usually what most people notice is really tight, is this area right here. We're just going to do a kneeling hip flexor stretch. So bring one leg out, and you're going to be stretching this hip flexor. And when you're doing this, again, you want to scoop your pelvis more forward. You don't want to have that arch in your back. So nice neutral pelvis. And then you're going to lean forward. And you'll feel a nice little stretch right through here. this for about 1 minute and then switch sides and then switch back again and do another minute. If you need more of a stretch, you can bring your arm up and over. That'll get a little bit more into here. So try a couple different angles. Okay, and then the last two is for, we want to do some internal and external rotation. So our hip socket, we can move it up, we can move it back. So that's flexion and extension, adduction, abduction, rotation. So it moves in all ranges of motion because it's a ball and socket joint. Something we often forget about is extension. So what we're going to do is get comfy down on the floor. You'll be in like a cobra position basically. And what we want to do is isolate the movement from our hips. We don't want to get our back into it or compensate or be rolling over. So stiff, you want to straighten out whichever leg you're going to work on. So we're going to work on our right leg first. So I have my toes pointed, feeling really stable in my position right now on the ground. And then we're just going to lift and lower. So just a little lift and lower, and it's really not that big of a range of motion. If you're having a hard time straightening out the leg, you can also do it with a knee bent, up and down, up and down. So that's getting our extension in. Oh, sorry. Also, two more actually while we're down here. We want to do external rotation and internal rotation. This is a half frog position if you're familiar with yoga, but what we're going to do a little bit differently is try to lift our knee up to the ceiling. So we're at a 90, and you want to keep your foot flat and into the ground, and then we want to rotate our knee up to the sky and back down again. Whew, and that might make you cramp up a little bit. Oh, haven't done that one in a little bit. Okay, so you probably won't have like a great range of motion, and if you can't lift your knee up at all, you can do this on your bed or on your couch so that you can let your knee hang down a little bit and then get more of a range of motion. So just up and down, up and down, up. So ideally you want to hold that for about 10 to 30 seconds and do that 3 to 5 times. And then we can work on flexion, but it's like an isometric flexion. So we're just going to push our knee into the ground and relax, and push our knee into the ground and relax, because we're still activating these inner thigh muscles. Okay, so when you are going through those stretches and mobility routines, pick out 2 that are the most restricted for you and do those every day. You can do, and then there's also a mobility routine to go with it, but it really will only take you about 5 to 10 minutes to really focus on 2 of them. And then once you get more mobility with those 2, then you can move on to 2 more or keep on adding on. And just a really super simple mobility routine that I do quite often is you can do this kneeling or standing. We'll just do kneeling for now. So you can start off in this position, and then let's go kind of like a little lunge out to the side and lean back. So now you're getting a stretch in your inner thigh area. Hold that for about 5 seconds, and then we're going to rotate. Bring this knee up, and then we can go into a quad stretch. You would hold this for 5 to 10 seconds, and then we go into the hip flexor stretch. So you lean forward, and then you'll go into the hamstring stretch. So you lean back, and then before you know it, you're on the other side, and you start it all over again. So those are the routines for having happy and healthy hips. If you have any other questions for me, please let me know. I am more than happy to help. If you're feeling a little bit stuck or confused about any of the moves, please let me know and I will clarify those for you. All right, happy Friday.